video, I'd like to talk about how to introduce yourself in Korean. And basically, there are two key sentences when you introduce yourself. Okay, let me give you this example. If you are Steve Wilson and you are a junior, then how can you introduce yourself in Korean? Well, let's fill in the blank together. Okay, hello means 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요, right? And I'm Steve Wilson. How about this one? In English, three component here, right? I, subject, and verb, and then Steve Wilson complement. So when you put this into Korean, the thing you have to remember is that all the time the subject will come first, just like in English. Okay, I, 저, come first. And then you will go back to the end of the sentence and you have to come to the verb like this order. So in Korean, I, Steve Wilson, am, that kind of sentence order we have. So in Korean, we'll say 저는 스티브 윌슨이에요. So in this sentence, 는 is subject marker. We have several subject markers in Korean, but when you introduce the topic, we usually use 는 for that function. So 저는, as for me, it means as for me. Steve Wilson이에요. 이에요 actually comes from to be verb 이다 plus 어요 sentence ending marker. 이, if we close this out, 이, 어요 comes into 이에요. Especially when you have consonant right before it, we use 이에요 rather than 예요. So after the consonant, we use 이에요. It means to be. This one. Okay. And then how about this one? I'm a junior. Once again, I will come first. And then you will start from the end of sentence and then backward like this. So 저는 3학년이에요. It's really the same. It ends with consonant. So you have 이에요 rather than 예요. Okay. Then let's move on to another example. You are Yumi Kim and you're a freshman. Then how can you introduce you in Korean? Once again, you will start with hello, which means 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. And then how about this one? I come first. Kim Yumi. In Korean, we start with family name and then given name. Kim Yumi. Okay, like this. 저는 김유미예요. 저는 김유미예요. But in previous example, you have used 이에요 rather than 예요, right? The difference between those two is me, it ends with vowel, right? So after the vowel, we use 예요 rather than 예요. So vowel plus 예요. 미예요. 김유미예요. Okay. And then I'm a freshman. It's really the same. I, freshman, 1학년. And then lastly, 이 verb, 이다예요. So we'll say 저는 1학년이에요. Once again, this is consonant, right? After the consonant, you will say 이에요. And after the vowel, you will say 예요. 김유미예요. 1학년이에요. 이에요, when you are having a consonant, we think that is a little bit tough. So we need to have a vowel to make the sound soft. So we try to put E right after the consonant, okay? And then lastly, let's go for this example. Hello, I'm Michael Jung. I'm also a freshman. 저는 마이클 정이에요. 저는 마이클 정이에요. Once again, after this consonant, 이에요, right? And then for this topic marker, 는, 저는 마이클 정이에요. And I'm also a freshman. Well, also in English, also in Korean, 도. So 저도 1학년이에요. 저도 1학년이에요. So you already know why 이에요, not 예요 in this specific sentence, right? Then let's move on to do here. Do actually is a subject marker, but it has additional meaning, which is also. So I'll say that that is also topic introducer. So basically, do is subject marker, and it means specifically also in Korean. Okay, so I'm also a freshman. You'll say 저도 1학년이에요. Okay, then let's more focus on the grammar part here. Okay, I have mentioned that the sentence ending marker 어요. So when we have ida to be in English, to be, then how can you conjugate ida with the sentence ending 어요? It has two forms. One is 예요, the other is 이에요. If you look at this picture here, when you have vowel, we think that the sound is soft enough, so you don't need any spring arm. So we'll say, we don't need a cushion, so shrink your spring arm, the kind of concept you have. So you'll say, 김소미예요. You just shrink the 예요 part as 예요. On contrary, when you have consonant, we say that is a little bit tough. So we need some help of spring arm. So stretch the spring arm like this. So 이에요 rather than 예요. Okay. So when you are confused with these two different forms, then basically remember these two pictures. When you have vowel that is really soft enough, so you don't need any spring arm, so make it shrink, 예요. And when you have consonant, then the sounds is really tough, so you need to stretch out the spring arm. So you make it as 이에요 after the vowel, 예요 after the consonant, 이에요. And then the last grammar point of this lesson is subject marker. In Korean, we have several different subject markers. For in this video, I would like to focus on only those three, 은, 는, 도. So 은 and 는, these two are really the same in terms of the function. They are introducing the topic. So 는, it has subject marker function plus topic when you introduce the topic. So we'll say topic marker. So 마이클은, it means as for Michael. So 토미는 means as for Tommy. But as you can see here, after the 크, you put 은. After the 미, we'll use 는. The big difference between these two, well, it like this. After the consonant, we use 은. After the vowel, we use 는. And then the reason is, also, if you look at this picture here, these two sounds are wrestling, and this are consonant. Two consonants are wrestling and they are conflating, then it's really tough. The sounds gets tough. So we need a cushion. So what kind of cushion it is? The cushion is 응 sound. So instead of 는, when we have consonant, we need a cushion. Cushion, this one is cushion, okay? And if we have vowels before this, then we don't need any cushion. Vowel is soft sound, so we don't need any cushion. So the basic form 는 will be good enough, okay? And then lastly, another subject tag is 도. 도 is a subject tag, and also it has special meaning, which is also. So you can say that 도 has two layers, okay? The first is subject tag and second is also meaning tag, okay? And let's then practice the whole sentences together. So the very first one, hello, I'm Steve Wilson. I'm a junior. How can you say this into Korean? Okay, let's try it. 안녕하세요. And this one. 저는 스티브 윌슨이에요. 저는 스티브 윌슨이에요. 저는 3학년이에요. 저는 3학년이에요. And Yumi, hello, 안녕하세요. 저는 김유미예요. 저는 김유미예요. 저는 1학년이에요. 저는 1학년이에요. 저는 I'm Michael Jung. 저는 마이클 정이에요. I'm also a freshman. 저도 1학년이에요. In this video, I have introduced you the key expressions when you introduce yourself in the very first beginning class. I hope this lesson helped you a lot. Okay, bye-bye.